56. Just a bit. Well, I know that is the we do what I need yellow now. Maybe we can just keep us to a whole new easy beer, Miss on David and Mesquite speech, and Miss Gabina. On the hour. If I'm telling Dan, you have to know Louis to I got to set up, get down to Louis to. We have a relationship with the province, with Aboriginal affairs, with the premiers, with the economic sector, with the environment sector. There's so much that goes on with the friendship that we have made with many of the people working for the government. And that's exactly what we want with every province in Mi'kmaq territory, because we are not going anywhere. We will never go anywhere. But for me to say that is kind of untrue, because Mi'kmaq are travelers, and when we look at the fact that we're going to celebrate 300 years of the first treaty signed with the British, it was signed in Boston, Massachusetts. So it tells you how Mi'kmaq have traveled in even the last 300 years. So it's important for us to come together. But it's more important for the Mi'kmaq to come together and hold our allies accountable. When you look at everything that has happened with the justice system, with our people being killed by police forces, by our people being abused by DNR, DFO. It's high time that we put a stop to that. And how do you do that? By working as allies. The Mi'kmaq need their own policing to work with the RCMP. And not just for the communities, but for all of our territory. This is our territory, our land. This is why we say unceded Mi'kmaq territory, Mi'kmaq land. We've never given up. And we've never given up our right to see who comes here, to work with Canada as allies, to look at immigration. In our culture, Nedubalim is a way of providing for yourself. It could be hunting, fishing, gathering. It's how you provide for yourself. And Mi'kmaq need to step up and work with the federal government on policing issues, on immigration. There's so many things, We need our own division of the Coast Guard to make sure that we can watch out as our forefathers did. Make sure that our lands, in the 1752 treaty, there's one clause that says the Mi'kmaq are able to salvage. It's their right to salvage. How can we salvage anything and help our fishermen or other coast guards or other boats if we can't get up here? We need Canada to step up and treat us as allies, not as their subjects. That's why it's so important for us to come to that point, and every district in Mi'kmaq to work on that with our Grand Council. Our Grand Chief has done such a wonderful job of bringing our chiefs together to work together. But we need our people. We need our people to come here at Treaty Day and make that known. That is what we want to do. It's very important when you look at our treaties. We didn't get anything from the treaties as a sovereign people. And it's hard when people don't understand that. We have to look at the laws, of working with the justice system, of making sure that our laws are also fully comprehended. It's very important as we look at social. We look at Dajigin in Nova Scotia, when we have our social directors come up and make a policy to put welfare, and that's what it's called in our culture, welfare. That's the social policy, and make sure that it helps our people. That's guaranteed to us in the treaties. Yet every time we deal with anything from the government, we're always given the opportunity to deal with Indian affairs, INAC or CERNAC, or the minister at the Amherst. You know, they haven't dealt with us. When you look at our language, you know, Tim Houston, the Premier, and his government, you know, working with, of course, provincial workers when they passed the Mi'kmaq Language Act, you know, and even Canada when they passed the Indigenous Language Act. Yet, when you look at what the Grand Chief spoke of yesterday, truth and reconciliation, a day for truth and reconciliation, but who do we talk about? We talk about the children that went there. And that's fair to talk about the children that went there, some that never came back home. We have never been compensated and looked at what harm they've done to our nation. We are a nation. We are not a couple of communities coming together. We are a nation within the 7 districts and the US. We have so many of our people that left during residential school era and moved to the States. And now sometimes they have such a hard time coming back because they're given a hard time and not even being recognized as Mi'kmaq. Well, we need to change that. Mi'kmaq need to be working at every border crossing because people are coming into Mi'kmaq territory. You will call it Atlantic Canada, the provinces. But we celebrate Treaty Day at Halifax, and that has always been kind of a problem to other Mi'kmaq and leaders in the Atlantic, because in 1752 they didn't have provinces. You know, we said we'd come here to celebrate in Halifax, and that's why we have to remain to our word, come to Halifax. And I'm so grateful to the Lieutenant Governor for bringing other Lieutenant Governors here. You know, it's very important because the interaction that we have here is exactly what we need with Canada, with the Crown. You know, I was so interested to see Senator Christmas, Senator Brian Francis, and even our MP, Jaime Baptiste, looking at themselves as ambassadors to Canada, you know, from the Mi'kmaq Nation, because we need that nation-to-nation relationship. That's not going anywhere. We're not going anywhere, as I mentioned. But it's important for us, for the Mi'kmaq, to look into the future, to make sure that we can protect future generations and our allies. It's very important. That's what we agreed to. We would always protect our allies. Now, it's hard for me to say this, but it's important for us to protect our allies from themselves. It's not to be mean, it's not to be ungrateful, but it's the fact that I've never believed in the moderate and livelihood treaties. The right of the Supreme Court can tell me, oh, you can only take a moderate livelihood while their people wipe out our oceans. The Mi'kmaq need to be present with our laws, with Canada, to make sure that there's enough for future generations. We all live here. We all have to work together. You know? And with that being said, it's very important that we look and teach our children. You know, we have a very good program here in Nova Scotia with treaty education. They brought out a booklet, and I was going to show the booklet, but my wife's not here yet, so I'm going to keep talking and talking until she gets here. No, but the booklet worked on with the treaty education and the Nova Scotia, you know, the school systems and so forth. We want to teach everyone about our history. It's got to be talked about. It's got to be shared. It's got to be known. And they have done such a wonderful job because they lay out who we are from the 7 districts, because it's Nova Scotia, but we look at our relations. In Mi'kmaq, Unsidnogama means all of your relations. That relations doesn't have to be man, woman. It's also the environment. It's the species, you know, the wildlife, to make sure that we take what we need and we protect everything. That's very important, but they have done such a wonderful job. And I have to thank Premier, you know, I think former Premier Stephen McNeill, you know, brought treaty education to our doorstep. But as treaty people, we need to understand that. As human beings, we need to understand that. We've had such a beautiful celebration today. It's important that we keep that going. You know, I really thank Lieutenant Governor LeBlanc for the fine work that he's done in bringing other lieutenant governors, because they need to hear that. And that's the one thing I told them yesterday at our dinner. You know, how we moved around from 1986 to now is the fact that we had to tell the government to stop being afraid of us. You know, why are you so afraid? You know, that's very important for us to move forward. But Mi'kmaq have to play a role, a vital role in everything that we do. You know, we have so many beautiful people, from elders, knowledge keepers, to keep the language going. But like I say, when you talk about the language, you know, even though we have 2 language acts, Canada and province of Nova Scotia, we still are not treated from a nation perspective when we try to get funding for it. You know, we're getting peanuts, you know, or table crumbs from what falls off the table, because we're competing with the rest of Canada. We don't know what the rest of Canada, all the indigenous organizations are doing. It's not up to us what they do. They have their own systems. But from the Mi'kmaq perspective, we want to make sure that every Mi'kmaq community and every Mi'kmaq child has the opportunity to learn. Very important, because when you come from an oral tradition, everything is passed down and shown to you. From land-based learning to ocean-based learning, everything was taught that way. You were shown what to do. And with that being said, as Grand Captain, I have a role that's different from the Grand Chief, different from the Bidus. As the political spokesman, the War Chief, the one that has to say what needs to be said. You know? I don't need to make friends. I have enough friends. But I like making friends, because we're human beings. We want to help each other. We want to help but make sure that the Mi'kmaq Nation is recognized all over the world. Much of our resources are being exploited all over the world. We don't have a say. We don't have a say. Here it is. But I'm not going to go through it. But I didn't even bring my cup of water. RJ, sit on that. But this is the copy from Treaty Education Nova Scotia, working with the Mi'kmaq, working with MK, our Mi'kmaq education system, in the province. It's very important because it's an eye-opener for the rest of Canada. Many things that we do here, you know, and Jaime has a good smirk on his face. He was the first treaty education lead for Nova Scotia. You know, but you have so many people that are here. It's very important. You know. Okay, so that's why I'm looking at. I'm just going to look at this a little bit, and I'm not going to go forward too much. But under our treaties, you know, it's very important that we have to clarify the free trade and the border crossings to maintain better relations with the Mi'kmaq in the United States, as I mentioned. You know, we have so many of our people living there, yet you know, they're not allowed to come back. You know, even now, when our people go that are from here, when they cross the border, have such a hard time, they're given such a hard time from duty-wise and so forth. As Mi'kmaq citizens, we have dual citizenship, you know, just to let you know. You know. And like I say, I just want to look at the fact that we must align federal laws to confirm with our treaties and inherent human rights. We must comprehend the environment that has sustained us as under threat from outside forces. You know, very important. In the UNDRIP Action Plan and the UN International Decade of Indigenous Languages, Mi'kmaq need to seek justice for intergenerational cultural and language genocide inflicted on Mi'kmaq. We need to advocate for bolstering the funding and priorities of the Mi'kmaq language in the Indigenous Language Act and the Mi'kmaq Language Act, in the Nova Scotia Act. Under Canada's Act respecting First Nations, Inuit and Métis youth and families, Mi'kmaq needs national and provincial advocacy organizations to bring Mi'kmaq law to Mi'kmaq child and family services. The Act affirmed the right of First Nations and organizations to enact their own child and family service laws to ensure equality for all. I just want to mention that as Grand Captain of the Mi'kmaq Nation, I have also made a man you might know, by the name of Brian Francis from Elsipogtok, Mi'kmaq ambassador to the Acadian and the French. Poor Brian, every time the Acadian would celebrate something in the Atlantic, he would be called, and when they're called to Nova Scotia or PEI, he feels not frustrated, but he doesn't want to take anybody's position. But as a Mi'kmaq, we have that ability to send ambassadors to work on certain issues. So I asked Brian if he'd be an ambassador from the Mi'kmaq to the Acadian and the French. So it's important to keep that relationship going. And I just don't want to take up too much of your time, but I've talked about many things I want to talk about in the treaty. But the important part is the Mi'kmaq themselves, Dino. Ajabun jibal tuldi, ajabun wiskual tuldi, akamachwa mawi daik. Mubuk chik mawi daik kinu, tumak say daik kara rakayin mugla, etlin duldi kinu, Mijani motar dik, wiskual tuldi, jibal tuldi. Because ajabun daik. Deze geloof dat deze bulgazi bulki vegetaji Keptin Andrew Denny. And I'm just going to translate that. It's very important from every tribal district in Mi'kmaq territory to unite from a nation perspective, to work on your tribal districts. And we need to have a say in all that goes on in the Atlantic. If we don't speak up soon and take a stand soon, everyone will be wiped out here. I always refer to the codfish. And I've mentioned this many times, but I was only 18 years of age in high school. And when W5 showed a program of the fishermen in Newfoundland, and one old man was crying, a fisherman who's fished for decades, crying and admitting we wiped out the codfish. What have we done? Mi'kmaq weren't allowed in the waters yet, so they couldn't blame the Mi'kmaq. But that's not the point. The point is, I could not protect that man. And that's the important part. We need to protect all, but we cannot protect them if we're not involved. And it's not just organizations. We have our Grand Council here, our sovereign government, that are able to put in people from their communities to do what is right. So it's up to us to come together and work together. So with that being said, Danny, sorry for taking so long, but well, all you for listening to me for a little bit. Thank you.